Welcome to the Kindle Chronicles, the Friday podcast all about your Kindle. I'm Len Edgerly. This is the show for July 14th, 2017. I am sorry to say that my planned interview for this week fell through because my guest, Alex Cabell, founder of standardebook.org, came down with a voice-hampering cold, so he couldn't make it. We may be able to schedule him sometime later. In his place, you're going to hear from Len Vlahos, who with his wife, Kristen Gilligan, 2 weeks ago became majority owners of the Tattered Cover, an iconic independent bookstore in Denver. Len's previous experience at the American Booksellers Association and the Book Industry Study Group, I think, gave him an unusually thorough preparation for the always changing challenges of running a major bookstore. In the year and a half since I last had him on the show, he and his wife have brought energy and new ideas to the Tattered Cover, and the result is it's a pretty upbeat story to my ear, and it seems less related to the role of Amazon than seemed to be the case when I'd speak with people, at Book Expo and from the bookstore sector in previous years. So anyway, this is a great story, and I hope you'll enjoy the interview.
Bookstores have evolved over the years to become very much experiential retailing, and we're no different.
Also this week, I will take a look back at Prime Day, and I will tell you about the deal that got away from me at 3 a.m. on the day after Prime Day. I am recording the show early on Wednesday night. I'm surrounded by boxes and the chaos of moving. Gentle Giant's packing crew will be here tomorrow at 7 a.m., and the actual move of all of our stuff to storage is scheduled for Friday. I have set up mail forwarding, canceled Comcast the day after I post the show, tried to figure out what clothes to keep for the next few months while construction gets underway at our new home here in Cambridge. So this all feels a little bit like recording a podcast in a barrel as it bobs along toward Niagara Falls, but just sort of doing one thing after the next and making lists. It turns out Darlene, my wife, has been a tower of organizing prowess this week. She's packed up the kitchen, her quilting supplies, the basement, the garage, and she just seems more comfortable with this process than I am. We 15 years ago took some long trips in a small motorhome, a Rialta by Winnebago, 21-foot motorhome, wonderful little vehicle. And so she likes to tell me, just think of it like taking a trip in the Rialta. That's when I get overwhelmed by deciding what to take. And she's right. We've traveled light in the past, and it was a special form of bliss. So it's also, it's nice when you don't have to take all the books you want to read on a long trip. And that's the way it's going to be when we're waiting for the new home to be ready, probably toward the end of this year, maybe even into next year. We'll have our libraries on our Kindles. Next week's show will go up at Ocean Park, Maine, where we will spend the rest of the summer. We'll be making frequent trips down here to Cambridge by train or car in order to keep track of the construction project and to stay in touch with the family. So good times ahead. A little chaos is probably good for the soul. Well, there was just one big news story this week, the third annual Prime Day. Amazon released its usual teasing anecdotal report on sales results. Before that release, CNBC ran an amusing and enlightening interview yesterday morning as Prime Day was getting going. It was with a retail consultant, Jan Kniffen. I think he's from Chicago. And here is what he had to say about Amazon's general growth rate and what Prime Day means for it.
When they grow 20% every year, whether it's because of Prime Day or because of something else, and the rest of retailing is barely growing at all, it's always a market share game. And when they can launch something like Prime and they can do this much business in July where nobody else does any business, July is the second smallest month of the year for retail, and yet they can throw an event that's imaginary and made up. It's not a real event. Nobody thinks there's a holiday. Nothing's going on other than Amazon said, we're going to throw a big event. That's a pretty extraordinary ability to move the customer.
I mean, do you think, though, the market, Jen, is overestimating the impact Amazon's Prime Day will have on its longer-term success in the online retail space? Because, yes, they're on pace to break their record of last year, but still it pales in comparison to the sales that Alibaba saw during its Singles Day.
Hey, same in a word? No, I don't think that. I think this is a very big deal every year, and it'll just get bigger every year. I agree. They copied Alibaba, and they don't have what's going on at Alibaba, but look at this day. I mean, it's July, and they're throwing all this business into the mix. Nobody else is doing that. Other people are trying to compete on Amazon's Prime Day, and it really doesn't make much difference because this is an Amazon-created holiday, and it's really working for them. And my guess is just it'll get bigger every year, and they'll just do it better. And all of these third-party players, some of who weren't really playing when they started Prime Day, have just gotten more and more business going through it. I just think it's going to become this enormous event, and it's in the middle of July. And I kind of think for retailing, it's hilarious and scary, both.
Hilarious and scary indeed. Since the analyst mentioned sales by third-party suppliers, I think I'll start there in taking a look at the Amazon press release today. Prime Day was held in 13 countries this year, an expansion of the global component compared with last year, and that gave small businesses and entrepreneurs in India, China, Mexico, and elsewhere a chance to experience the power of this made-up shopping holiday. One U.S. business, Furbo Dog Camera in Bellevue, Washington, reported their daily sales increased by more than 500 times on Prime Day. Within the first 6 hours, the Furbo Dog Camera zoomed to the #1 bestseller in 4 categories, including 2 that Amazon described as highly competitive: pet supplies and home monitor. I think I remember seeing this as I was scanning deals on my app, the Amazon app on my iPhone, but I didn't stop long enough to really even figure out what it was doing. So tonight I checked it out, and it's a pretty crazy product. It enables you to remotely toss your dog a treat using your smartphone, and it triggers the treat to get tossed out, and if the dog is there, he can catch it. And you can also communicate with the dog. He can hear you, and you can hear him, and you can kind of be anywhere sending a treat to your dog and watching him scamper around. That would be great if you were away from your dog, but that's not going to do much for Darlene and me because our Yorkie Claire's very seldom in another room of the house, never mind another state, so it's not a product that we use much. But it does look cute, and apparently on Prime Day it was selling for $169, a 32% discount from the usual price of $249. It looks like it cleared out the warehouse because today I can't find a trace of Furby Dog Camera at Amazon. They have their own website, though, at shopus.furbo.com, and I'll have a link in the show notes to it. The video shows a sad dog scratching the door as the owner leaves, as he's alone at the house, but then he hears the owner's voice activating the device, and he gets all happy when a treat goes flying through the air and he can catch it from the Furbo device, and the owner is encouraging him from the office. I showed the video to Darlene thinking, well, she might love this, but she said the next thing that dog is going to do is jump up on the table and tear that thing apart. She knows, and she wasn't even impressed by the fact that they had a Yorkie in the still photo on the site, and the Yorkie looked a lot like our Claire. Well, I didn't buy a Furbo dog device, but I did spend a total of $374.52 on Prime Day. The biggest purchase was 2 of the 23andMe DNA kits, one for Darlene and one for me. I've been interested in this for a long time, partly because one of its directors is a woman who was on the staff of the Harvard Crimson with me, Esther Dyson, and the kits were selling for half price, $99 each, and they sold out very quickly. This, I think, would you swab the saliva, you send it in, and in 4 to 6 weeks they tell you, based on that, where your ancestors came from, and a lot of potentially useful health information. So it's going to be interesting to see the results of that. We also got one for Darlene's sister Deb in Omaha. I also bought a dual port car charger for our iPhones, a 12-count pack of my writing instrument of choice, a Uniball 207 retractable gel pen, medium point, black, 2 pair of swimming goggles for the beach. There was a great little device I spotted. It's a Celestron solar binocular, and it's designed so that you can look right at the sun during the solar eclipse, and I am going to that eclipse in Casper, Wyoming, our old hometown, on August 21st, so I'll be carrying a special eclipse binoculars that I bought under $20. Maybe it was $30, but it was a great deal, and I'll be using it for 10 minutes sometime. That'll be the extent of it for the rest of my life. I also bought 10 marshmallow roasting sticks for chilly nights at the beach when we can have a fire in the fireplace and maybe some grandsons to entertain. A new desk lamp for our new house. A Munchkin Mozart Magic Cube for my grandniece Willow. This was cool. You press the different sides of the cube and it would bring in different instruments of an orchestra playing something by Mozart. So I think my little 1-year-old grand niece is going to enjoy that. Oh yeah, and I also bought a TV. I came within a whisker of jumping at that 55-inch Element Fire TV that was flashed all over. But I just wasn't sure what space we're going to have in the new house for a TV, so I held off on that one. But I did get a 32-inch Roku Smart TV for $132.80, and I'm sure there'll be somewhere I can park that, maybe wherever I put the cross trainer in the basement. I can watch TV while I'm doing that. I did use the Amazon app. I don't know. There's hundreds of thousands of deals, so you just have this sense that you're pawing through so much to find things. But it was pretty handy that you could set up deals to watch. I did find it was a little bit intrusive because I was on a Skype conversation with a friend of mine in Casper, and all of a sudden my Apple Watch and the phone was buzzing that one of these deals had started. And since these deals can go out pretty quickly, I'm sort of looking at my watch and saying, well, gee, it seems a little rude to just stop and buy something in the middle of this conversation. So I did miss a couple of deals because I chose to not to send into rudeness just because Amazon was paying me to buy something. The moving period, I'm a lousy sleeper anyway. I'm even worse before a big move like this. So last night I was up as the clock was ticking down to 3 a.m. Eastern time. That was the end of Prime Day. So I had loaded up my shopping cart with a good deal on a drone for the beach. That was something I was sort of looking for. I got a $14 one at Prime Day last year. It flew, but it was just so flimsy. So there was a much more substantial drone that I was watching. It was about $80, I think. And I had it in the cart, and I was just kind of saying, do I really need to haul one more thing up to the beach? And so I clicked on the buy button after I got it all set up to be shipped up to Maine. And I don't know if at 3 on the dot 3 a.m. or if it was 3:01. But anyway, by the time I was ready to click the buy button, the Prime Day deal had disappeared. So all those deals disappeared and turned into pumpkins at the stroke of 3 a.m. Eastern time. That was 30 hours after the sale began. So it wasn't a huge deal on the drone. I think I probably would have saved about $10, but that was enough to go back to sleep without buying a drone. It's pretty clear I wasn't the only one who was having fun on Prime Day. Amazon's release said that it was the biggest day ever in Amazon history, surpassing Black Friday and Cyber Monday. This year's sales grew by more than 60% compared with the same 30 hours last year. I think that puts it up at estimates of about $1 billion in sales on one day. And the big news for Amazon that really drives this whole thing is that more new members joined Prime on July 11th than on any single day in Amazon history. Tens of millions of Prime members made a purchase on this year's Prime Day, the release said, and that was more than 50% higher than last year. The most popular purchase was not the Furbo pet camera. It was the Echo Dot, selling for its lowest price ever, $35 instead of the usual $50. And the full-size Echo was half price at $90. I think at one point that was selling the most, but in the end, the Dot had the biggest amount of sales. Amazon said Prime members purchased 7 times more Echo devices this year than they did on Prime Day 2016. There was a deal combining an Echo Show with sort of a security camera, and I think it was $75 off. The camera was fairly pricey, but it wasn't enough to interest me. I was hoping there would be some kind of just a straight discount on these new Echoes that have the screen. And I was holding off to get 2 more for my parents, but in the end I just got 2 more, and that gave me $100 off the regular price of $230 each. One will go to my mother's dressing room at their house, and the other will link Dad's office in Harvard Square with the house. So I'll be setting that up before we head up to Maine on Saturday. The most downloaded Kindle Unlimited book was Stillhouse Lake by Rachel Caine. I hadn't heard of this, but here's the setup according to the description. Gina Royal is the definition of average, a shy Midwestern housewife with a happy marriage and 2 adorable children. But when a car accident reveals her husband's secret life as a serial killer, she must remake herself as Gwen Proctor, the ultimate warrior mom. That book has an average review rating of 4.6 stars out of 5 based on 2,097 reviews. So that's a hot seller. That was the top Kindle Unlimited download on Prime Day. So that's Prime Day. I'd love to hear your own stories, a terrific buy, a disappointment, the strangest item that you discovered. Listener Mark Roberts reported that he has a weed eater and an Instant Pot pressure cooker headed his way, but no Furbo Dog Camera for his noble canine, Carson, who I met down at South by Southwest in Austin. What's your story? You can email me at podchronicles@gmail.com. For the tech tip, I received some information from listener John Aga regarding Audible titles. He wrote, regarding your TKC tip Audible upgrades, I believe you have easier Audible upgrade access through the Kindle reading app. Now, I think he means the reading app on a smartphone. I tried it on my iPhone. He writes, when you open the Kindle menu from the upper left-hand corner of the app, then scan near the bottom, you'll see Discover. And under Discover is the option to select Audio Upgrade, along with a number indicating the number of ebooks available to have Audible upgrades. I find this much easier versus logging into the Amazon website. Well, I did try this. I got a slightly different experience when I went to the Kindle app on my iPhone. From the library view, where I've got all the lists of titles, I did see the menu on the upper left. That's the 3 horizontal bars. And from there was a choice called Audio Companions, and I tapped on that. This did bring a list of my Kindle books that have Audio Companions, but I couldn't just buy one from the iPhone. I think that's that issue that Amazon doesn't want to be paying Apple the commissions for buying things using the iPhone itself. So the option was to add one of these Audible books to my Kindle wish list, and then I got on my computer, and it showed up in the wish list, and I was able to buy it at a reduced price because I had the Kindle version of it. So that was a good way to find books that I'm going to get a better Audible price on because I have the Kindle app. John also tipped me off to the new OverDrive app update. I think I've talked about that in the past. I can't exactly remember when that was, but it's worth mentioning again. It's called Libby, and you'll find it at the iPhone App Store, and I'm sure it's at Google Play. It's a nice-looking app. I paired it with the 2 public libraries where I have cards, Denver and Cambridge, and once that information's in, it's easy to switch between the 2 libraries within the app and see what I can find. You're reading it within an app, so it's not like reading a Kindle book, and it has advantages because you can get it faster using the OverDrive app, but I think the thing that you lose that I really value is the ability to do notes and highlights. You can do it with Libby, but I don't know how you find them. I think you would just sort of see them in a particular book that you had made some annotations, where, of course, Amazon now has this terrific system where you can take all of your annotations from a book and email them to yourself, and then you can print them out and copy and paste to your heart's delight. So it's a much more powerful way to use notes and highlights than is available in this OverDrive app. But it had different colors of pages. It's a really nice-looking app, and if you're just reading and you want a handy way to get books from your library, that OverDrive app is pretty handy. The way you can get Kindle versions from your library is on my iPhone, for example, I would use Safari to go to the Denver Public Library site and then navigate to the ebooks, log in, and then once I see a book that's available to borrow, there's a choice to download it as a Kindle formatted book. That takes me back to Amazon and to a page where there's a yellow button that says borrow this book, and at that point I've got an actual Kindle version on my iPhone or other device, and with all the different advantages. Disadvantages, it's a few more clicks to get it there, and I can't easily switch between Denver and Cambridge when I'm doing that, like I can within the OverDrive app. I last spoke with Len Vlahos in February of last year. That was when he and Kristen were 7 months into a 2-year transition in ownership from Joyce Meskis, a revered leader in the Denver community because of her visionary leadership of the Tattered cover for more than 40 years. So now that transition is complete, and I spoke with Len by Skype from Cambridge this week on Tuesday, July 11th. I think it's pretty hard to imagine anybody better prepared to run a bookstore than Len Vlahos. He worked, as I said, with the ABA for 11 years, and he was chief operating officer when he left there in 2011 to work at a respected book industry think tank, the Book Industry Study Group. He's also a prolific writer and a one-time member of a punk rock band named the Woofing Cookies. So, where to begin with a guest who has lived so many different and interesting lives? Let's start with the beginnings of a legendary bookstore.
Tattered cover actually started in 1971. Joyce Meskis bought it in 1974 as a 950 square foot bookstore and built, as you say, this sort of iconic Denver book-selling empire, really. Joyce, when she decided to retire, selected us, and we worked with her to start a two-year transition that came to fruition on July 1st. Joyce is going to stay on as a consultant, and she still has an interest in the business, so Joyce will continue to be our business partner and will be a sort of a part-time consultant.
Well, and I would think that makes sense because when you think of the success of the Tattered cover, I mean, from my time living in Denver, her role in the community, and also it seemed as an outsider, the incredible loyalty that she generated from employees. They seemed that it wasn't unusual to find people who had worked there for decades. Is she able to keep playing that kind of a role as you become the person that is known in the community and has that kind of loyalty among employees?
You know, I think that role less so. You're correct. Kathy Langer, who is our director of buying and announced her retirement for next March, started here in 1977. Our chief operating officer started here in 1980. Our CFO has been here 20 years. It's a lot of long-term employees that Joyce really did engender that loyalty. But no, I think going forward, she's going to be less involved with personnel, and the role I imagine Joyce will want to play is on the financial side and kind of helping us understand and manage the finances of the bookstore, and we'll work together on we'll advise us as we need it on new initiatives as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, you made a big life move when you took the job moving from Stamford, Connecticut, and now you're a Denverite. In 2 years of experiencing that change, what have you noticed most about living and working in Denver versus Connecticut?
So just technically, we are Littletonites, I guess.
Okay.
We live in Littleton, Colorado. Everything about life here in Colorado for us is better than it was on the East Coast. We have a better living situation in terms of the house we're able to afford, the school district our kids can attend, the street we live on. People here are just a little more chill. My commute time, which had been 3 hours round trip every day, is maybe 40 minutes each way when I come to the Colfax store, and I'm out and about in all the stores. So I have a more flexible schedule because it's retail. I'll work a lot of evenings or work on weekends, but I can be involved more in my kids' school. So everything about life here is better, with one exception. Is for some reason the East Coast does snow removal better than Colorado. So
that's a surprise.
Yeah, because we have so much sun here. Apparently, the snow removal plan is it will melt.
And blow to Nebraska.
Right.
Well, when we talked about a year and a half ago, you had been there about 7 months, and I was struck because you said you'd spent a lot of time asking yourself what makes a customer want to make her discretionary dollar purchase or leisure hour with the Tattered cover. What makes you a unique enough experience just to actually make people choose to spend their money and their time at the store? Has the way you've thought about that question or answered it changed in the last year and a half?
So, that is, I think, something that will be an evolving answer to that question forever, as times change and as culture changes and as technology changes. So, for us, I think at the heart of what the experience is for Tattered cover and has been continues to be the same, which is a warm, inviting place that you feel comfortable and want to spend time and are surrounded by this unbelievable diversity of content and interesting people, combined with doing 500 plus events a year across our 4 locations. We recently had Senator Al Franken in conversation with our Governor John Hickenlooper. We had 1,100 people come out for that, and that's an experience that you don't get through other kinds of businesses, and we have that all the time. We whether it's a big name author like that or a debut novelist, there's always something interesting going on at Tattered Cover. We have story time going on right now in our Colfax Avenue store with 30 or 40 kids with their parents and having a great time. So bookstores have evolved over the years to become very much experiential retailing, and we're no different. We will continue to look at that, and one of the things that we've looked at and have made some real had some real early success in is our connections with schools. So we take Tattered Cover outside of the store, and this has largely been my wife Kristen who has done this, and she has forged relationships with dozens and dozens of schools in Metro Denver. So in the spring and in the fall, we're putting authors in schools 3 and 4 times a week. We're doing in-store fundraisers for schools. We've launched a teen book festival. A lot of things to get kids excited about reading. And we also have teen advisory boards. We started one in our suburban store in February of 2016. I think we had 5 kids come to the meeting. And ostensibly it was to get teens to come out and talk about books, write book reviews, help us plan events, etc. We now have 50 kids participating in that advisory board, and we started one in our Colfax Avenue store, and we now have 50 kids there. And in fact, they're meeting tonight and tomorrow night in those 2 locations respectively, and they're helping do all the crafting for our upcoming Harry Potter parties. So we've really gotten teens involved in a sort of interesting and exciting way, and so I think it's also bringing Tattered Cover outside the borders of the physical borders of the store.
Well, now, teens, is that kind of a long-term benefit, or are teens that get engaged this way actually coming in and buying books and increasing sales as opposed to looking for how much of a customer they're going to be in their 20s or 30s?
It's less commercially. I mean, obviously, those are things that we're interested in, right? We want the teens today to buy books, and we want them to buy books from us, and we want them to stay with us through their 20s, and when they have kids, to bring their kids back to us because of the experience they've had. But this is actually one that's a little more mission-driven. We think the community is a better place when people read, and we think it starts with kids. And so we're very, very committed to children's literacy, getting kids excited about and interested in reading.
And that's an energizing mission that I would think would maintain the Tattered Cover's sort of how much it's revered by the community and the employees.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Any other innovations that you've tried that turned out surprisingly well, or that you maybe hadn't seen a year and a half ago, but you tried and they've been wonderful?
I don't know what's been wonderful or not, but some things we've done in the last year and a half since you and I spoke. We've hired a new manager for our coffee shops and have completely retooled that business. It's a new menu with natural, locally sourced ingredients at our. We closed our suburban coffee shop, and we still have our 2 Denver coffee shops in our 2 locations here, but have retooled that completely. We have a new computer system.
That's your point of sale system?
Point of sale, inventory control, our general ledger, all of it. We went from a sort of a much older Unix-based system developed in the 90s to a state-of-the-art cloud-based system. So we can have better access to data and better understand our business. I will tell you, the implementation of the computer system was a bit like a heart transplant being done by a short order cook. It's not without its difficulties, but we're over the hump now, and we're starting to see the benefits of having that system. So that was a very big initiative for us. The outreach to the schools I mentioned, those are some of the big things we've been doing.
Do you still have that? You had a machine, I think, at the Loto store where you could print books right in the store. Is that still something you're doing?
It's not. I still believe in the concept of printing books on demand in the store, but we've when the lease on that machine ended, we elected not to renew it. it was a dollars and cents decision, and honestly, the machine, the technology wasn't quite yet what it needed to be, and more importantly, the publishers had not yet licensed enough of their content to print the book. So what it had become was really a custom publishing business for us, and we elected to focus on our core competencies first rather than that. We may go back to that someday, but for right now, we've elected to part with that business.
I would think it'd be an interesting transition to go from you were at the American Bookseller Association, and you were chief operating officer when you left, and now you've been in the trenches. You've been in a store for 2 years. Is there anything that you've learned in these 2 years that you wish you had known at the ABA, or that you think the ABA ought to could benefit from your learning?
That's a great question. The difference from being in that support role at the trade association to being, to actually doing it every day, I don't know if that's wisdom that one can impart without living it, because there haven't been a ton of surprises in the sense of, wow, I didn't realize the business quite worked this way. It's more of the amount of things that come at you every single day in a business the size of Tattered Cover. We're 160 employees. We're 4 locations that we own and operate. We have a partnership out of the airport where we have 3 more branded locations. The joke I made with Joyce during our, frequently during our 2-year transition is, which day do I actually get to sell books? Because there's always another, whether it's a personnel issue or it's a physical plant issue or it's an inventory issue, there is always something to deal with. So I just think it's the sheer amount of things that come at you every day that you don't know until you experience it.
I would think it'd make it awfully hard to stay on track with your mission in the midst of that you've got to, how do you do that? Do you set apart a certain part of the day or the week to just be head down on something that matters in the long term, no matter what comes across your email or your phone calls?
Yeah, it is. It's definitely an amount of making extra. It's an issue of making extra time. Because my wife is my partner in the business, a lot of our conversations at home are dominated by the store, so we get a lot of our strategizing done then. But it's also a matter of having a really world-class staff that both participates in the wave of things coming at you, handling them, and participates in the strategy. So we're very much a collegial consensus building organization.
Well, now Amazon, I think probably for most of your career, has been a source of anxiety, a sort of a factor in the landscape, especially for independent bookstores. And if you think a year and a half or 2 years ago, what your anxiety level about or foreboding about Amazon might have been on a 10-point scale versus what it is today, about the same? Or are you able to sort of see them in a different perspective than a couple of years ago?
Yeah, I'm a lot of my independent bookselling colleagues. I'm one of the independent booksellers know probably has a little less anxiety. There was a quote the other day from Allison Hill, who is the CEO of Vroman's bookstore in Pasadena, California. And she basically said, we don't compete with Amazon. We don't compete with what they do well because they don't really compete with the things we do well. Now, at the end of the day, we go back to that question that a customer is still choosing to spend their discretionary dollars somewhere. And if they're going to buy a book, are they going to buy it from us, or are they going to buy it from Amazon, or are they going to buy it from Costco? So the best we can do is continue to make the best environment and best product, meaning the experience of the store, that we can. The thing that has caught the attention of the indie bookstore world certainly is Amazon rolling out brick and mortar bookstores, their purchase of Whole Foods. That kind of makes us sit up and take notice. I was in the Amazon bookstore in Columbus Circle. It's a very interesting space. It doesn't feel like our bookstore feels. Everything is face out. It feels like maybe it's a little more designed to cater to getting more people to become Prime members than to build excitement around books. But it wasn't a bad experience. I think Amazon does what they do well. We just need to do what we do as well as we can and exist in the space that we exist.
I think everybody's sort of trying to guess what the purpose of those stores is, and you and others have talked about, well, maybe it's just an outpost. They're actually going to be distribution centers of some point as opposed to actual retail space. Do you have any more clarity about what this animal is?
None whatsoever. And that's, Amazon has always played their cards very, very close to the vest. They don't share data. They don't share strategic thinking. And that's how they run their business. And, good for them. I whether or not they come to Denver, one would assume, we're such a boom town. At some point, we'll see one of those stores here. But for now, it's not something I don't make our strategic plans worrying about that. Mm-hmm. I'm worrying about how best to serve our customer and how best to leverage the growth and excitement that exists in this city, in this metro here.
Hmm. Well, I feel like I could be interviewing two people when I talk to you, because you have a full-time job as a bookstore owner, and you're also a pretty active author. Since we talked, you've published 2 new books. Tell me about the books, and then I want to find out how much sleep you get.
So I have published 3 books to date. The first was The Scar Boys, which was in 2014. Its sequel, Scar Girl, came out in March of 2016. And I had a new book published in January of this year called Life in a Fishbowl from Bloomsbury Publishing. I'm really excited by all of them, but that one excites me. The first 2 were drawn, they're novels, but they were drawn from personal experience because I dropped out of college to go on the road with a punk band. And those are punk rock coming-of-age stories. Life in a Fishbowl is a very different kind of story. Very briefly, teenage girl, Jackie Stone, shy, retiring girl. Her father, her anchor in the world is her father. It's a very special relationship. We find out on page 2 that dad has an inoperable terminal brain tumor. But it's not really a cancer book. It's sort of a dark comedy because he's not thinking clearly, and he puts his life, his actual life, do with me as you please, murder, torture, polite conversation, up for auction on eBay. So it follows the people bidding on his life. It follows his daughter's effort to save his dignity, and the brain tumor itself is an anthropomorphized character. The book is being published in 18 countries and 12 languages. Super proud of it. It got a nice starred review from Publishers Weekly, a nice starred review from Booklist. It'll be a paperback sometime either in 2018 or early 2019. I'm under contract to write another book with Bloomsbury, and I've signed on with Macmillan Publishing to do a collaboration with the young adult author Julie Halpern. So I have a 9 and 6-year-old son, and we have a new puppy. So the answer is I don't.
You don't get not much sleep in that scenario, huh?
Almost none at all. So.
Well, I thought I saw a paperback version of Life in a Fishbowl on Amazon. Maybe it was a pre-order, but it looked like it was selling for $6.51, and the Kindle version was $8.57. So this is not that unusual.
So the book was published. Bloomsbury published in the UK and Australia, New Zealand, and it was a paperback. It was a hardcover in the US and a paperback.
Oh,
other English language markets. So you may have seen a foreign paperback edition.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, and that's sort of a bone of contention that my listeners are always sort of bugged by the idea that a paperback could cost less than an ebook. Normally, that's big 5 publishers setting the price of the Kindle book, and then Amazon discounting the paperback book because they can. But if you were going to try to help somebody understand why there would be a higher price on an ebook, which has no stuff to make it, it's all bits, versus a paperback book, what would you say?
I think the market sets its own price. I think every player in the market, from the author and the agent to the publisher to the bookseller, be it Amazon or be it Tattered Cover, have different economic drivers, and they're often doing things to support. You'll see a massive advance for the Obamas to write their books. But that also is at the same time they're trying to nurture debut authors, and pricing models go all around that. It's such a complicated game that it's one that I don't even feel like I would want to comment on why a book would be why one format would be one price and another format would be another price.
Yeah, and I suppose one mistake that someone could make, from my point of view, just as a reader, there's got to be some kind of simple conspiracy, or there's somebody's doing this to me because of this. But what I hear you saying is there's so many vectors and moving parts to the book publishing business that that's probably not the most accurate description of reality.
There was a great big Justice Department thing against some of the publishers in Apple over collusion, which, quite frankly, I thought the Justice Department got that wrong. I thought the market was taking care of itself, and there was certainly belief among many that Amazon was the driver behind that Justice Department investigation. At the same time, there's some real concern about sort of Amazonian monopoly, right? That because ultimately, monopolists exist at the end of the day to raise prices, so where the whole market shakes out, I don't know. I'm happy with my little corner of it here in Denver. I used to have to worry about the big picture when I was with the Booksellers Association. Now I can worry about selling books to Coloradans.
Exactly. What are you reading now? Not that you have a lot of discretionary time to read books just for fun, but what are you reading lately?
So I listened to the audiobook of the Al Franken book in prep for that event, and he reads it. And it was fantastic. It was such a it was a book that made me laugh, it made me cry, and it made me think. I just read one advanced reader's copy of a young adult novel called The Chaos of Standing Still by Jessica Brody, which will be out this fall, and it was fantastic. The entire thing is set in the Denver airport, so I love that. And I'm reading an ARC now of a book, a Random House book called American Wolf, which is a nonfiction book about the reintroduction of wolves into Yellowstone. I'm only 50 or so pages in, but really well done and interesting.
Well, I wish I could have been at that reading that Franken did with Hickenlooper. Do you remember any particular, both pretty funny guys, was there any moment that was particularly memorable with those two on the same stage?
Nothing that would make any sense out of context of being there. I will. The only thing I'll say is that the sort of the running joke leading into the event is that the Denver Post had coined the phrase Frankenlooper 2020, which we all got a kick out of here. But no, they were both really charming and quick-witted and thoughtful. It was Franken's night, though, because it was his book, and the governor really did us a huge favor to come out and do the in-conversation with him. But I will tell you, we had about 1,100 completely thrilled over the moon customers that night. So.
Was there a recording that'll show up on a podcast anywhere?
No, we did not record it. It's that is one you had to be there.
Yeah.
So.
I think we hit just about everything I was hoping to talk about. Anything else we didn't mention that you'd like to bring up before we close?
No, I'll be salesy for a second and say that we've got Dan Brown coming this summer in partnership with the Douglas County Libraries. We've got Dan Rather coming this fall. We have Dan Rather coming this fall. We have a couple of big kids authors on tap. So just everybody who's listening in Metro Denver, check the Tattered Cover event listings and come on out and see us.
I have been speaking with Len Vlahos, co-owner of the Tattered Cover Bookstore in Denver. Thanks very much, Len.
Thank you, Len.
That's it for this week. I have been trying to reach the author Harry Bingham in the UK for next week's interview, but so far I've not been able to raise him by email or a comment left on his website. He and his wife have 2 sets of twins in addition to his busy career as a writer, so I'm sure he doesn't spend all day checking his inbox. But it would be great to connect with him and have him back on the show because he has the 6th in his Fiona Griffiths mystery series has been published recently, The Deepest Grave. I'm about halfway through it, and it's really a good read. Another author I'm hoping to connect with perhaps next week or the week after is Scott Parazinski, and he's written a book called The Sky Below. It's published by Amazon Publishing. He climbed Everest. He was in the space shuttle, an astronaut, quite an amazing life, and it's a pretty well-written book I've started. It also has some enhanced ebook features to it that I think are going to be interesting to consider. So we may be tracking him down within the next couple of weeks. I'm still working on the Echo Show mystery on how to connect to specific devices at my parents' home. There was a little clue to how this works today because when I dropped in on my mother's account, all of a sudden I was looking at the show view on the 3rd floor, which is where my dad's show was. And the reason was that my mother had turned hers off. So there seems to be some kind of a priority list that if I just call their house with her name, the first one that it tries to connect me with is the kitchen, and then the second one seems to be the one on the third floor. So I am still trying to figure out how all that works. This is Len Edgerly in Cambridge, Massachusetts for the Kindle Chronicles. I really appreciate your listening to my show. Have a great day. Bye.